Amidst the backdrop of our Cambridge team and sharing their client challenges and how they think about being courageous and united, we wanted to invite a client partner today to talk about his journey and how he thinks about being courageous within his own organization. And so with that, I'd like to introduce Houman Akhavan, who is the CMO of US Auto Parts. And today he will be sitting down with a fireside chat with my teammate, Mark Schweinitz from Ann Arbor. So welcome, Houman.
So Houman, tell us a little bit, I have a first question for you. What are some of the steps you've taken in your life to be courageous? Which is why we asked you up here today, because you're courageous.
So thank you for the intro, Mark. Super humbled to be here today to share some of my experiences with you and the rest of the Google team. Over the last 2 decades, it's been a personal journey of self-discovery that has allowed me to be here today. When I first think back to the start of my career, I was somebody that constantly dealt with a lot of fear, anxiety, stress. But I could have never imagined today that I'd have the courage to be here today and be able to speak in front of a large audience. It took me 20 years to get to this point, but it doesn't necessarily need to take that long. It may be the reason why men don't ask for directions when they're lost. So now that we have Google Maps, there's no excuses. First and foremost is family. That's the foundation for me and the bedrock. I think there's no greater driving force than the love of your family that makes you kind of go to work and really step out of your comfort zone to kind of do great things. So that's number one. And part of that, further to that, is my wife. She's kind of been my life mentor. Been married for 18 years. So over the years where I've had personal gaps or limitations, she's kind of the polar opposite of me, where I'm a little bit more of an introvert, and she's more of a fearless tiger, right? So, having those polar opposites, we kind of, over the years, I get a little bit, of her, and she gets a little bit of my kind of more calmness and more over-analytical thinking of situations and things like that. In addition to my wife, my daughter, which is actually here today, Ariana, and she's actually the reason that I'm here today. Mark obviously reached out to me and invited me. The old Houman would have said or made some excuse up, to not be here, right? That fear of public speaking. What am I going to say? Am I going to make any sense? And all that. So I thought, and I said yes right away. And I needed to set that example for my daughter, that if I step out of my comfort zone, how can I be courageous and set an example for her? Nothing's going to stop me from putting in 12-hour days. I'm going to continue to do that, but understanding when it's time for family, like being able to kind of disconnect from work and being present in those moments is super important for me. So I'm very grateful for my family and my daughter. So the second piece is awareness. Awareness for me, the way I look at it is I think about my life as an algorithm, and there's all these signals around it. There's negative signals that you might have negative outcomes, and there's signals that might lead to positive outcomes. So 2 examples of that for me. Over the years, I had to realize, and I don't want to burst anybody's bubble, but alcohol for me doesn't necessarily work. And if I drink, even if it's in moderation, day 1, day 2, day 3, I'm not the same person, and I'm get a little bit more anxious, a little bit nervous. And for me to be the best version of myself, I had to, over the years, pay attention to those things that that would have a negative impact on me. So it doesn't mean that it's bad for everyone. I think every individual has a different chemical makeup. So it's about understanding what works for the individual. So that's one. Another one is coffee. Caffeine that comes from coffee is another thing. If I take coffee, you'll have that immediate high, but you'll crash. So I'm a big believer in green tea. So I love caffeine, don't get me wrong. Green tea, matcha green tea.
You got it right here.
Yeah, I got it right here. So
close by.
And that just gives me a really clean energy, and I don't crash. And then the third piece of it, I would say it's health and fitness. So one of the things that I found out is just getting that runner's high. So I'll wake up in the morning, sometimes I'm a little bit anxious, sometimes a little bit nervous, but I'll run for like 30 minutes. Break a sweat, get the heart rate up, get the blood flowing, and I start my day like that, and it just completely changes my mindset. I get a little bit more confident. There's actually a lot of studies that have shown that getting runner's high, the endorphins that are released, actually reduces your anxiety levels. So if you feel like you're dealing with anxiety, just do a daily routine of starting your day with a really brisk run, get your blood flowing, and then when you start your day, I'm confident, positive mindset, and I'm just giving the best version of myself to my coworkers, to my peers, to my family. when I started this routine, it was Monday to Friday, right? I said, hey, I'm doing this for work. I'm gonna really put that out, for work purposes. But then I realized I'd get to the weekend and I would have like headaches on the weekend. It would just hit me on the weekend. So this is another great thing about Google. Any particular problem or issue that you have, there's probably somebody on the net talking about it right now. So I definitely leverage Google as my self-help resource. So I just started researching weekend headaches, and lo and behold, there's something called weekend syndrome. So you might have a strict routine Monday to Friday, but come Saturday, you say, you know what, I have a couple hours, I'm gonna sleep in 8, 9. But again, for me, if I fall off the routine, that's when you kind of fall off. And the weekend's important because that's the time that I give to my family. And if I have a headache on the weekend, I'm gonna be lethargic, I'm gonna just wanna lay on the couch and not really do anything. So it's every day. I definitely have a more positive mindset. Which I always had that, but I think it's just that positive mindset that you can reassess the things. Maybe there's some short-term thinking that was taking place, and it gave us an opportunity to kind of really make some long-term decisions. One of them was, and I may have been responsible for this, but when US Auto Parts initially started in the early 2000s, when the online business launched, we had the multiple site strategy, right? And over the years, Google kind of dictated that, hey, it's not a great strategy to have multiple websites. It worked at some point. And we definitely had a strategy to kind of get the sites down. I think we went from 300 down to 17, but we were still at 17 websites. So we just had to really assess the metrics, look at what's working, what's not working. And we went through that site consolidation strategy. We're now down to 4 websites. We're going down to 3. Our flagship website's carparts.com. I highly recommend you guys to check it out. It was just making those decisions quickly, decisively, and we're seeing kind of the dividends pay off.
Sure.
Part of that. So. No, I think you have to have an open mindset to new ideas. I mean, if we think about digital marketing, the space and the tech is constantly changing. And if you're not staying up with that change, if you have a fear of change, I believe that's the death of innovation in itself. Like looking at your data and your analytics, right? If the numbers actually speak to you, right? So for us, like for example, the site consolidation, we looked at the websites that are performing the best, have the highest conversion rates, and then we're seeing the websites that have the lowest conversion rate, like what can we learn from that? And that also drove kind of the site consolidation strategy and the decision to say, hey, carparts.com is the site that should be our flagship website. Before we had different sites for different channels, which didn't really make any sense. So it was more about saying, hey, we're gonna have one website, multi-channel strategy, and that kind of really drove those decisions. So, yeah.
How is the culture of the leadership team shaped and developed? Is it from your president, Lev?
Oh yeah.
Or?
Yeah, absolutely. It starts from the top and it goes down. And even on the fitness thing, it's something that we share amongst a lot of the executives. So we kind of push each other to kind of be more fit in shape. So that's just one thing that kind of.
Do you have like a fitness competition or what sort of thing?
No, I mean, our CFO sends text messages early in the morning and saying, get up and get after it. So I think that's to the extent.
Okay.
That's to the
so you don't
extent
mind that hearing from your colleagues when you're in bed? Or
it became a competition of who's going to wake up earlier to kind of tell the others to kind of get up and get after it. So I think it's definitely a positive mindset. But I think the main thing is I see my team as my most valuable asset. So treating them with respect, because they have choices and they can go to different companies, but treating them with respect and giving them the flexibility where they can take risks in their own right. And if they fail, that's okay, right? As long as we learn from those ideas. So we kind of created an environment and culture of risk-taking, but also the positivity, respect, collaboration, working together to kind of reach those goals. That's really important for us. Like, I'm in there with them in the fight. So as I mentioned, kind of leading by example. I'm not like micromanaging what they do, so I give them the flexibility to kind of do their own thing. And part of our team is they have different strengths that they bring to the table, right? And if I didn't have my team, I'm nothing without them. So I really just feed kind of what their drive is and areas that they have strengths to kind of let them be successful in those areas. And it's it's a very easygoing vibe that we have together. I hope they feel the same way. But yeah, that's really what it is just kind of giving them the flexibility and the room to be creative and bring ideas to the table and having an open and willingness to kind of test those and try those ideas.
Let's open it up for Q&A from the audience here. You can ask Houman about what he does at US Auto Parts or Courage, how he lives his life, etc.
My question is to you, as you work with partners like Google, how do you encourage your Google team to be more courageous and maybe question and challenge you and your team on the way you are thinking, and what's your advice on that?
Yeah, I give a little bit of a long-winded response there. When I think about Google, I see Google as an enablement company for e-commerce companies to compete with Amazon. If you think back to the acquisition of Urshan in 2007, which is Google Analytics today, Google's really made this investment to give the tools and platforms to retailers to really compete with Amazon. So I think the relationship that retailers have with Google is a very unique one, and I really value that relationship. I think if there was no Google, I think what would the world be today? Would it be a world of just Amazon and eBay?
It's the wasteland.
Yeah. It might be a wasteland, exactly. So
I'd love to know a little bit more about your thought process when Lev asked you to rejoin USAP. So you had that fear, right, when you left. Then you were asked to come back. How were you confident in your decision, and what did you think about through that decision-making process?
Yeah, I'll put it in 2 words. Unfinished business. And that was actually, that's the same thing I sold Mark, because I had to recruit Mark back to the business. Even Robin, he was previously with us through an agency, so I had to recruit him back to the business. And I told him, because you have to sell them on the vision and the story of why to come back, and I really just said unfinished business. Really, like the opportunity that this business has is incredible. And anytime you have a team that can be on that same mindset, anything's possible, and that's kind of that's the direction we're headed down. We're on that path, and we're just going to continue, and nothing's going to get in our way. So I'm happy. I'm happy I did this. I'm happy I could show my daughter that I could do it, and I thank you guys for inviting me and giving me the opportunity to kind of come here and share the ideas.
Okay. All right. Well said.
Thank you.